And the top story tonight, a grand jury is investigating former Penn State football coach Jerry Sandusky.
News 8's Barbara Barr looked into the allegations that Sandusky inappropriately touched a teen boy. Barbara?
Well, Brian and Kim, in the past hour, Jerry Sandusky's attorney sent me this email with his reaction. And in the email, it said that Sandusky refutes the allegation that he had inappropriate contact with a teenage boy. And it says if charges are brought as a result of the grand jury report, Jerry Sandusky will fight them. This is one of the lasting memories longtime Penn State fans have of Jerry Sandusky. Players carrying their defensive coordinator off the field after the Lions win in the 1999 Alamo Bowl. It was Sandusky's last game in a 32-year coaching career at Penn State. Now Sandusky faces a challenge off the field. A grand jury is investigating whether Sandusky had inappropriate contact with a teenage boy.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kim Lemon.
And I'm Ron Martin. The Penn State scandal. Prosecutors make a plea to the alleged victims. Come forward. News 8 has live team coverage for you tonight. For the first time, state investigators spoke out about the charges against former assistant football coach Jerry Sandusky.
News 8's Matt Barcaro is following that story for us. He's live in Harrisburg. And News 8's Barbara Barr is live in State College with more on how the Penn State community is reacting to the news. Let's begin our live team coverage with Matt.
Kim, Jerry Sandusky is accused of having inappropriate and sexual relationships with 8 young boys. Of those 8, though, we found out today, investigators still don't know who 2 of them are.
This is not a case about football. It's not a case about universities. It's a case about children who have had their innocence stolen from them, and a culture that did nothing to stop it or prevent it from happening to others.
The state police commissioner pointed out 2 elements of the Penn State sex scandal he finds disturbing. The first, the allegations against former Penn State football defensive coordinator Jerry Sandusky. Sandusky is accused of sexually assaulting 8 young boys he met through his nonprofit, The Second Mile. Investigators are still trying to identify 2 of the boys.
And I just hope that if I'm speaking to any of those children that might be watching today, that they will realize that the Attorney General's office and the Pennsylvania State Police will listen and will pay attention to everything, to complaints that they have.
Investigators also find disturbing an alleged cover-up of the abuse by top university officials. A grand jury says Tim Curley, the former college athletic director, and Gary Schultz, the former senior vice president, knew about at least 1 case of alleged sex abuse by Sandusky. But they did not report it to police, and the grand jury believes that when they said under oath they did not know of the abuse, Curley and Schultz lied and are guilty of perjury.
This is News 8 at 6 in HD.
Questions surrounding Joe Paterno and his future as Penn State's coach, so we went right to the Lion King for answers. News 8's continuing live team coverage, and the Penn State scandal is tonight's top story. Good evening, everyone. I'm Kim Lemon.
And I'm Ron Martin. News 8's Pat Principe was at Joe Paterno's house in State College this afternoon when Joe and his son spoke briefly with reporters. Pat joins us live from there now with the latest. Pat?
Ron and Kim, it's quite a scene here outside the Paterno house. Dozens of Penn State students have gathered here to show their support for Penn State's Lion King. We have gotten unconfirmed reports that Joe Paterno may have been relieved of his duties. He reportedly met with his team around 2:30, 2:45 today, returned to his home, and then left again at about 4:30 and has not been seen since. Scott Paterno, Joe's son, came out here a few moments ago and all he told us was, say a prayer for our family. Now, there are reports in the New York Times and the Associated Press today saying that the Board of Trustees was going to decide Joe Paterno's fate, and it could come as early today, possibly Thursday or Friday. Scott Paterno told us earlier today that as far as they were concerned, Joe Paterno was still the coach and was going to be coaching here Saturday against Nebraska. And of course, this is all the result of those alleged child abuse sex charges against former Paterno assistant Jerry Sandusky. A lot of people were upset because even though Joe reported what he had heard about one of those particular acts, he didn't take it further. That outraged some people, but I got to tell you, right now outside Joe Paterno's home, these students are fully in support of Joe Paterno and want him to remain on the job here at Penn State. It is a fluid situation here. Details are coming in fast and furious. If we learn anything more before the end of the newscast, we'll be back later in sports with that. We may have definitive word on the fate of Joe Paterno by then. We are live outside the Paterno household here in State College.
Now, News 8 Sports with Pat Principe.
Hey, it's been a day unlike any other here in State College. We are outside Joe Paterno's home here. Earlier today, Joe Paterno scheduled news conference where he wanted to talk about the child sex abuse charges against former assistant Jerry Sandusky. That was called off. Then there were reports that Penn State's Board of Trustees were going to act as possibly as early as today to remove Joe from his head coaching job. We just learned from Scott Paterno that Joe Paterno is still the head coach of Penn State football. This is the scene a few moments ago with literally dozens of students flocking outside the Paterno home, and Joe Paterno arriving back from practice, getting out, a very emotional Joe Paterno, thanking everybody for their support, saying it a couple different times that he was moved to tears. Joe then moved inside, and then he and Sue Paterno greeted the students from the window of their living room, thanking them again for their support.
The Penn State scandal is the top story this Wednesday night. Today began with the surprise announcement from Joe Paterno that he would step down at the end of the season. But 1 hour ago, that changed in a big way.
The Board of Trustees fired Paterno effective immediately. He won't coach another game for Penn State. And after 16 years, President Graham Spanier is out as well.
Both casualties of the charges that former coach Jerry Sandusky sexually abused several young boys. Pat Principe and Mike Straub are live from Beaver Stadium in State College. And Pat, tonight's action, I think it's fair to say, is devastating to Coach Paterno and a lot of fans.
Without a doubt, Janelle. I can honestly say I am not totally surprised at the action the board took tonight. Joe Paterno sort of kind of fired a shot across their bow today when he sort of took it upon himself to resign, trying to go out on his own terms. Mike Straub was there when the Board of Trustees made the momentous decision, and I got to figure the atmosphere in that room had to be something unlike we've ever seen, right?
A few students made their way into the room, but mostly media members. The board was behind the spokespeople for the board, the leaders of the board, and they knew they just said they had to make a decisive action, and they made it tonight.
The Board of Trustees and Graham Spanier have decided that effective immediately, Dr. Spanier is no longer president of the university. In addition, Joe Paterno is no longer the head football coach, effective immediately. Penn State has always strived for honesty, integrity, and the highest moral standards in all of our activities. We promise you that we are committed to restoring public trust to our university.
This is News 8 at 6 in HD.
Tonight, new faces leading Penn State through its biggest challenge.
I'm confident that, we'll find a way to heal him.
While not forgetting the past.
Coach Paterno will go down in history as one of the greatest men.
And students supporting each other.
Penn State! We are Penn State!
Live team coverage of the Penn State scandal continues now. Good evening, I'm Ron Martin.
And I'm Kim Lemon. It is another day of developments, and our team is covering it all from State College. Caitlin Smith attended interim coach Tom Bradley's news conference. Matt Barcaro has been talking with students today.
And Mike Straub just attended a news conference by Governor Tom Corbett. But we begin with sports director Pat Principe, who's been leading our coverage all week. Pat.
Hey there, Ron. We continue to deal with the outcome of the tragedy of young, innocent child victims allegedly being sexually abused by Penn State former assistant Jerry Sandusky. And now we deal with what we call the collateral damage, which last night, the firing of head coach Joe Paterno and President Graham Spanier. Today, the new head of Penn State football met the media. Caitlin Smith was there when former defensive coordinator Tom Bradley took the stage, and kind of a bittersweet moment, I would think.
Yeah, definitely. Tom Bradley said that he is a fan of and friend to Joe Paterno, and so he certainly did not want to get the head coach position this way, but he says it is a job that he is ready to tackle, even in the midst of controversy.
In a seat that Coach Joe Paterno has filled for the last 60 years, the interim athletic director announced it's time to move forward in a new direction.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our interim head football coach, Mr. Tom Bradley.
But this Q&A wasn't just about Saturday's game.
Everybody's thoughts and prayers are with the families and the children and those. So it's more than football. They realize that.
But first, we have breaking news involving the Penn State scandal. Jerry Sandusky was taken back into custody late this afternoon. News 8's Pat Principe is live in Bellefonte, Centre County, and joins us now with the latest. Pat.
Hey there, Kim. Jerry Sandusky is behind bars here at the Center County Correctional Facility tonight, unable to post the $250,000 bail that was levied against him for the additional sexual abuse charges that were brought against the former Penn State assistant football coach today. Sandusky was arrested at his State College home, led away in handcuffs earlier this afternoon. He is facing 10 new counts of sexual abuse. 2 new victims have come forward. We call them victims 9 and 10. They claim they were sexually abused repeatedly by Sandusky when they were around the ages of 10 to 12. They are second-mile kids. They were allegedly abused several times in Sandusky's basement of his home and also at a State College motel. Here now is Jerry Sandusky's attorney on the latest developments affecting his client.
With the prosecutor. Well, what I told him essentially is if we're going to play hardball, both sides can play, and I was a pretty good pitcher in my day.
This is News 8 at 6 in HD.
Are you looking forward to it?
A surprising move in the courtroom.
To stay the course, to fight for 4 quarters. Get it up. We wait the opportunity to present our side.
And we couldn't do that today.
Just minutes in the courtroom with one decision. Go straight to trial.
This is a fight to the death. This is the fight of Jerry Sandusky's life.
Are you looking forward to it? Still maintain your innocence.
Sandusky in court is our top story on News 8 at 6. Jerry Sandusky says he's not surrendering. The former Penn State assistant football coach is facing more than 50 charges surrounding allegations he sexually assaulted 10 boys.
And the next time he will be in court with his alleged victims is next year.
We have live team coverage of today's events from Center County. News 8's Barbara Barr reports on the Sandusky defense.
But we start with News 8 sports director Pat Principe. So Pat, what happened today?
Well, Kim, literally seconds after the proceedings began inside the Center County Courthouse today, Jerry Sandusky's attorney, Joe Amendola, approached the bench and announced that his client was indeed waiving his preliminary hearing. And of course, what that means is that Jerry Sandusky, the former assistant Penn State football coach, will now stand trial on over 50 counts of child sexual abuse. That trial is expected to begin sometime next summer. Barbara Barr was in the courtroom today, and while it was an announcement that we found somewhat surprising, in truth, this is in the works for a little bit, right?
Well, that's right, Pat, and the defense said that it actually made the decision, though, late last night, but it's not to be taken as a concession of guilt, but rather a tactic that the best defense is a good offense.
To stay the course, to fight for 4 quarters. We wait the opportunity to present our side.
As he left the Center County Courthouse, Jerry Sandusky reverted to familiar territory, using a football term to describe his battle against more than 50 child sex abuse charges.
Jerry Sandusky maintains his innocence, and we're going to fight like hell for him.
That fight will have to take place another day. The former Penn State assistant football coach and his attorney, Joe Amendola, called a last-second audible, waiving their preliminary hearing and denying a number of accusers the chance to confront Sandusky in court.
The painter hoped each brushstroke brought a little more justice, and in State College these days, he wasn't the only one.
Having him removed, I think, is absolutely appropriate.
A likeness of Jerry Sandusky has been prominently displayed on a mural a half-block long near the Penn State campus. He was up there because he was an inspiration.
I really wanted to see it in person because it really symbolizes everything that's going on for the past few days.
The painter, Michael Pilato, was going to wait to paint over Sandusky, the central figure in the Penn State sex scandal. But that changed.
And the biggest decision was yesterday when a mother of one of the victims emailed me and simply said, "Can you please take Jerry Sandusky off the wall?"
So he grabbed his brushes and, the best he could, smoothed over such a rough spot in the community.
I've painted 1,000+ people, and I never thought that I would be painting any of those people out of a wall. It was a shock.
People lined up to watch Sandusky disappear.
I mean, I become physically ill because it makes me think about those poor innocent boys.
In his place, an empty chair with a blue ribbon to symbolize the victims of child abuse. The painting will never be the same.
You can't really look at the whole thing and not have your eyes go to that point and realize that something's missing there.
Once it's Happy Valley again, somebody great will be sitting in that chair.
But that will not be soon. It took the painter only 20 minutes to cover up Sandusky. He only wishes it were that easy to erase what happened.